You're trying to keep my mouth shut. What are you talking about? I'm good. How are you? Nice to see you. Yeah. Oh. Okay. Interesting. Oh. Yeah. Great. Yeah, right, exactly. I know, right. That's so obviously we lost the teeth between Walton and Houston. The last thing we're like, how is it that pretty sure Mizzou's close. I mean, they almost lost to Vanderbilt. Like, super close. So. You know, I had the misfortune of being with the Tennessee game. They just got trounced. Just trounced. And I looked at the guys I was with, I said, what else is that? This weekend. This weekend. We will be 14-0. I love them, but my God. No, I usually go to like one a year. Yeah, I make it to like one. But my partner, he does it every single game. He gets up, his crew, and they wake up at 4 get out there. You have to be in line, though. Yeah. 5:30. His level of, you know, without ever consider. Oh yeah, he's the same thing. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's how he is. Same level of commitment. So whatever. Oh yeah. We'll be fine.
There they are. Right here's the chat. Okay. No, but I can't see. I was trying to see.
Hey, there he is. Morning, sir.
On my calendar, I have KCPS-TV. So on my mind, I was like, oh, Board of Elections / event. The Board of Elections. And I got there, I was like, wait a second.
Wait a minute.
Why would we have done that? And
This
I'm
isn't right.
like, no.
You made it. You did.
I have, yeah. I've seen the new, are there new ones on the new ones, or just the two new ones earlier today? It's a lot of labor. This is I was in several calls while the email was flying about this and that, and I can't tell you that I understand. That's this one.
Corrected it. Probably going corrected it. So now the total is about the same.
It was not enough to make it.
No, it's still a 5%. So you can compare it about me.
Yeah.
You don't have to move.
Yeah.
And then,
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I'll go up on this. I'm sorry.
I'm just keeping it.
From the other one? Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, yeah, I see.
This is one. We do have to change the 5 with the 10. That's gonna be the only change.
Sure. Yeah.
Once we're saying the same, so that's really good too.
Yeah. Wouldn't you agree that of all these? Oh, go ahead.
I'm just saying. Well, I saw the material plan.
Yeah.
This is also too to degree.
Yeah.
But they will have to decide if they like that or not.
Yeah.
So that's for the review section.
I do. Yeah.
So they like 4.
Yeah.
So I would just keep it.
5 was the 5 places back to the one that you kind of thought of at the end. Sort of yet another idea. I remember that. Yeah.
And 5 is the closest to the original.
Exactly.
That's for them to decide.
Yeah.
4-1 was just some feedback we got in the room.
Okay. We tried to put it into the.
And we tried to put it in and Kyle kind of had to work his magic to make it.
Here.
Yeah.
I mean, frankly, both of these even.
They need to go there.
Exactly. And tell us why. Because I mean, I can't tell. Yeah. Yeah, I know. But what's the harm? Yeah, I can hear the feedback. I was going to say that many of these are kind of similar variations on the same thing. Until, with the exception of number 2. think so. Hello, good to see you.
Hi, how are you, Dr. Mel? Good to see you. I know.
I like your hot road now.
I don't know.
It's gotta be in this way. You know, if I can find that, I might do that. You know, because it's a discrete, but I think it's actually, I tried to get, I tried to get a Census, and it's really fuzzy.
I don't know. I mean, that's okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if
I like to touch that.
my problem is, let's say it's six to two years. I gotta like go from on that. What? Like, you can't edit it, yeah, it's, when I have to go back, I draw arrows and things over. They'll come up with it. Actually, priority one, either two, does that.
Yeah. I'm for that. That would be great.
I'd be fine if we just stopped and just say,
Right. Oh, yeah, right, you. Got the river on.
the river.
You done your research?
I think I've done it once. It's pretty dry. Oh, yeah. You didn't have the new stuff.
Good evening. I'd like to ask that anyone that did not sign in, please sign in. We want adequate representation on the sign-in sheets, please.
Yeah, we got right in there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's good. You know, think of a win versus a loss. You know, and they felt good about it, so they took a day, we went home and slept. And
Yeah.
then we went to John's Big Record. First time I've been there for about a year. Last time I was there, I wasn't legally allowed to do it. And had a beer on the front.
Yeah, right.
He there.
I mean, a couple of years ago. Yeah.
I kind of forgot.
Yeah.
How much I like. I don't know when I did.
Yeah. Sometimes, I think they have, there's a group from our pool that they go to talk about that.
Oh, really?
They raise about, I don't know if that's it. You know that.
Yeah, I know this is Oh, goodness.
Yeah, I guess.
Yep.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the third and final hearing of the Kansas City Public Schools Redistricting Commission hearings. My name is Melissa Patterson Casley, as most of you know. Well, no, we got some new faces tonight. Melissa Patterson Casley. This is Lady John, Matt Dameron, Lori Elam is one of the directors at the election board. And Sean Keeper is one of the directors at the election board as well. Marion are their support staff and have been helping us throughout this process. So what we need to do today, basically, is to get feedback from you on these formats. The next meeting that we will attend, and you all are welcome to attend, please do, is the meeting of the Kansas City Election Board of Directors. So the board that supervises and manages these. That is, yeah, no problem. And so what we need to do is get your feedback on these formats. So for those of you who've not been here, and I'm not sure if you've been online, so I'm gonna give you a quick recap of what we've done. So we started out with just kind of a conversation session to kind of take the temperature of the folks that attended the meeting to see what the thoughts were, what the ideas were, what were some of the aspirations. And then based on that feedback, we created 5 sample maps. So the 5 sample maps were created at the second hearing, which was a couple of weeks ago. At the meeting with the 5 sample maps, we did the same thing. We gathered feedback from people that were in the room, kind of did a temperature check, and then we narrowed to 2 maps. We narrowed to 2 maps, and we narrowed to 2 maps. And then, based on conversation, there was a third map that was articulated, and so we ended up with 3 maps. If you will look at the original schedule of the hearing process, we had, during this whole time, the opportunity for community members to present a map of their choosing that they designed. And we asked for those maps to be presented by midnight last night. So this morning, essentially at midnight, to give us time to send those maps to city planning, double check the numbers, and also to have them printed. So thank you to city planning for making these large maps that then the election board put on poster board for you all to see up close. You have these same maps in your hand so that you can look at them closely. And there were 2 community maps that were presented, and they're called Community Map 1 and Community Map 2. So you see those. Our job today is to hear from you. What are maps that, maybe there are maps that are just, come on, let's throw this map out. We just don't like it. And everybody's entitled to their opinion. Also, you may have a map that's really your favorite, or you may have maps that I'm okay with this map and this map. So really this time is to hear from you, your feedback. Your feedback about these 4 maps that you have in front of you. So do you have any other questions about the process of how we got to this date? Okay, hearing none. And if you have questions along the way, feel free to ask any of us. But now we just want to hear from you. One thing that we do ask is that you please come to the microphone, state your name. You don't have to tell us much more than that, but your name, and then you can go ahead and give us your opinion about a map that you prefer or don't prefer. We are recording this session, and we will look at all those comments holistically, and so that's why we ask you to come to the microphone. Don't be shy.
This is Mr. Grime. I wanted to make one comment that may aid your comments. Maybe it's a question or something where if you have responses, it would be helpful. As you look through the maps that are left, you'll see there's a 4, a 4.1, a 5, and then Community 1 and Community 2. And 4, 4.1, and Community 1 all seem to be similar. They're sort of a family, kind of a map family that don't have great deviations. 5 seems to be yet another approach. And 5 is here really because at the last meeting, a few people expressed some interest in it. That's why it's still here. And then Community Map number 2 seems to be yet another approach, which is kind of distinct from all the others. And so if we were to winnow this down into 3 maps, that there's some chance that what we might do is just present the greatest diversity of opinion to the directors. So, for example, choose 3 very different approaches. We might, if we get a sense that everybody likes one particular approach, then we'll just choose the 3 maps that are that approach, and the decision will end up being, minor variations. So I think what I'd like to hear that would help me the most, and I bet my commissioners, to speak for them, is to hear thoughts about why a certain type of approach is superior to the others. So I'd like to hear especially about community map number 2. That seems to be a little bit of a different approach to the others. And maybe map number 5, or in the alternative, why the other 3, 4, 4.1, and community map 1, why those are superior.
Good evening, committee. Appreciate your work again. Thanks to the election board for their hard work. And another thing, thank you for laying out the process and doing the process exactly as you outlined from the beginning. I think that's admirable, and I'd just like to appreciate you all for that. I can talk a little louder now. And Mr. Ron, thanks for laying that out like you did. Squad Bookheart, Parent Power Lab. And I wanted to express, I do see a family of maps with the community map 1, map 4, and map 4.1 as a family of maps. And family of maps, and I generally, as I stated in the last meeting, support map 4. I think my top choice would be community map 1. And then 4.1, I have I could support that with some movement and some process. And let me explain on why that is. In the redistricting process, we have to understand this whole concept of community of interest. And we have this community of interest here in KCPS, as you have the community of interest anywhere in the country going through redistricting. Kansas City public schools are made up primarily, its students are made up primarily of Black and brown students. About 86% of our population are Black and brown. So those make up 2 distinct communities of interest. And my position would be that any dilution of those communities of interest would be problematic, and which is the main reason I do not support 5, because it dilutes both the Black and brown community of interest, who makes up the largest volume of the students in KCPS, and then 4.1 does that again to the extent. Now 4.1 can be fixed, but I tend to support community map 1 and the scenario for those reasons. And then of course I'll reserve some more comments for later.
Can you elaborate on how you think 4.1 can be fixed or changed? I'd love to hear it.
Certainly. Let me get it in front of you.
Sorry, I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
No.
Okay.
So I think what the concept was here was subdistrict 5 had to grow because of its decline in population, and it grew west. And as it grew west, it diluted that community of interest, which is historically a predominantly African American voting district. It also, but District 1 had to grow as well and District 1 grew by moving east, which is not necessarily a problem, but I think that there are opportunities to swap some parcels from Subdistrict 4 and Subdistrict 5 to strengthen Subdistrict 5 for that community group of interest, that community of interest on parity to what it was prior to this adjustment. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Marisol Montero. Thank you for having this forum and public input. As I'm brand new and learning this process, I was looking at the population counts on all of your maps, and I was first kind of stumbled by where it says in the very first population count, say for subdistrict 1, and you go all the way to the right, and it says Hispanic of any race. Now, when I was adding this into the total of the 41,571, if you're looking at map scenario 4, sorry, that's just the first map I have in hand. So sorry about that. That 3,073 is not included in the total, which came to realize when I found out on the 2020 census that they changed Hispanic as a race to ethnicity. And for those that don't know, a little bit of history is Hispanic term came into the census in 1980 as a race for Spanish-speaking people. And that's what I have identified as an adult when I did the census. And then I didn't realize until this that even though it says Hispanic of any race, it was not included in the 41,571, because then you would go over the 100%. So it'd be like 130 something percent. But then realizing that since they changed it from race to ethnicity, that people are identifying as a white race, Hispanic ethnicity, Black race, Hispanic ethnicity, and so forth. So it makes it very hard for someone like me. And then I couldn't until I was like, oh, I don't even remember, did I pick other race or did I pick 2 or other race? And then my ethnicity, Hispanic, because I never identify myself as white. So, in the white population as a race. So it makes it very hard for someone like me to be looking at these numbers represented and where do my people lie? So where does my race? Even though I do know from economic projections and school enrollment projections in subdistrict 3 from the West Side, historic West Side community, and the historic Northeast community, but then there's some outskirts within subdistrict 4 and 5 that there are some Hispanic families we're still identifying as ourselves as a race, not ethnicity, and not realizing that that change was made in the 2020 census. Sorry, I'm out of breath because of this mask. So it's really hard for me to see in the total numbers going across from left to right, where are our people at? How are they identifying? Because that number was separate and not really included. So that's kind of a hard thing for me to, how do we represent ourselves? So I think I would like to take in future considerations, how does that work with the next census, and keeping that in mind of maybe, I don't know if it does get included in the count, or is there another category that's going to be added? So that's just my comment on that piece. And if there's any clarification or other add that you guys want to add into that, that would be great. But as for me, myself, it's hard to see myself being counted because I know I never choose white as my race.
Right.
So
there's some commentary. There have been some articles written about that on the census this year.
right.
And apparently, if you go to the form, it probably misled a lot of people who maybe in the past chose Hispanic. I forget the
Yes.
explanation, but it drove them to other things. And so there's some reason to think that people who put 2 or more races that there could be Hispanic there, and there might even be within white some Hispanic. And I've forgotten the explanation, but it's the way the census form was structured this year. But all we can do is use the data that we get.
Right, I understand that. Thank you for that, because I did read that. So for another example, my son, one of my youngest sons, he is of multi-race, so he's Black, Hispanic, and Native American. And so that I was able to choose for him and include him this year. But for the past, it's always been race, Hispanic, ethnicity, Hispanic, Latino. But this time, so it was feeling unrepresented here because it's a separate category and changed to ethnicity rather than race. Thank you.
Buenas tardes, good evening. I'm Edgar Palacios with RevEd. I do have a question on scenario 5. I'm also new to the process, so my apologies if this is an ignorant question. But when I see subdistrict 3 without the west side dogleg, how did that rationale, like, how was that determined in the drawing of map 5? My concern is that is a historically Hispanic Latino community. I understand the demographics are changing, but we do have Garcia there, and so just curious as to how scenario 5 was drawn up, and how it's, codifies the lack of, well, what I'm trying to say is I'm concerned that it's going to actually reduce or remove the traditional Hispanic heritage that's found there. So yeah, I can show you.
That's the one. So the green is in there.
Let me say the rationale for that, and it's not necessarily that is preferred. I think that scenario illustrates another way to have Hispanic representation. That means that the new pink down there, coming up to 23rd Street, has had some ethnic population change, and so you actually can preserve the demographics, but it's just a different take on the map. And so you couldn't keep both because you would be numerically you will be too many people. So that's the rationale, and it's just an option. It might not be a good one.
I have a little more on that too, because the very first map I tried to draw for myself, which has sadly been eliminated from this process. I have no pride, but actually, I tried doing something similar to map 5, and here's something very surprising. So I think it's 105 and maybe 102 are the heart of the Hispanic neighborhood there. And if you look at the numbers, the population change for 105 and 102, and compare it to, let's just say, for example, 1301, 1208, the area that's grown fastest for Hispanics is that area around between Independence and Truman. And I'm confused with all the different colors and lines, but if you wanted to draw a map to maximize the percentage of Hispanics in one area, you would actually need to wrap around, and I know it seems counterintuitive, but you would actually eliminate 105 and 102 because here's the problem. There's a bridge that links those two areas. That area is the area that boomed in population of non-Hispanics. Well, or really the river market and the downtown, that northern loop. And so if you try to keep that bridge, it forces you to then lose areas in the southern part of 3 that are actually booming. It forces you to give those up to 4 and a part of 2. So I know, again, it sounds counterintuitive. It does have the feeling of stranding those very historic neighborhoods into two, but believe it or not, you come out with a higher percentage of Hispanic voters in three when you do that. And there's ways to even modify five, I would imagine, to do that even more.
Sure.
Just,
And it's just the option,
Yeah.
you know.
No, I appreciate that. I'm curious myself because I was like that to me. There's a whole conversation around the gentrification around the west side, of course, and so the historical significance of that dog leg, I think, is important. But I appreciate the change in the population shifting there. So thanks, Rika. Appreciate that.
Good evening. I'm Ben McCarthy. I want to concur with Mr. Bookhart on the community map number 1, map number 4, and map number 4.1 with changes in 4.1 that were recommended. And I want to base those changes in 4.1 on what I think is a disturbing factor in 4.1. In that, in District 5, we have a drop in the African American population. The overall population goes from being, if I remember, about 52% down to about 48% African American. But that's not the most drastic change. The most drastic change is in the over 18 population, where the African American population goes to 43%, while the white population over 18 goes to 45%, which would make this a situation in which a district that is majority or significantly majority African American is now faced with an over 18 population that is, in fact, makes African Americans second. And there is no reason to do this. And when I say that, what I mean is in 4.1, putting those west side communities that are in Hyde Park into subdistrict 1, I think it's fine. I think there's a community of interest there, and that's fine for them to be together. That increases the African American population in District 4, which is a majority African American district, so it certainly doesn't dilute their voting numbers. But in order to compensate for the movement of persons into District 1, you have to take some of that back. That's going into District 5 by the southern precincts, which is what's lowering that African American population number not only below 50%, but lowers the under 18 population to an extent that it is lower than the white population. And there is absolutely no reason. I mean, if it was necessary because of the population and the distribution, that's one thing. But it can be fixed, as was indicated before, by moving some precincts out of the 4th district into the 5th district and vice versa. We can have some movement of precincts. You don't have to affect the 1st district. You don't have to affect the 3rd district or the 2nd district. But you can move some precincts from the 4th district into the 5th district, and some precincts from the 5th district into the 4th district, bringing the African American, particularly the over 18 population, up above, not significantly different than it is now. And so unless there is some reason that this commission wants to give for diluting the African American population in District 5, that is an unnecessary thing to make. I would suggest that I would support 4.5 with the condition that a few precincts be moved around to maintain the African American voting population in District 5.
Now, I'm sorry, let me ask you, would you, would you just flat out prefer scenario 4 to 4.1 in that case?
No, well, one is the map that I do, right? But they all have their strengths and weaknesses. I think the important thing is that, we're no longer under a Voting Rights Act. But certainly the spirit of the Voting Rights Act, in terms of its preclearance and all that, was that no redistricting should reduce the population of various populations, African American and Latinx populations. And even though we're not legally under those guidelines anymore, I think ethically and morally we're under those guidelines. So each of those maps, 1, 4, and 4.1, each have differing strengths. But the problem with 4.1 is that it does delete African American population. Okay. And so, in terms of 4.1 and uniting the West Side, part of the West Side community with District 1, I think there is a strong community of interest there, and I would say that's an advantage in doing that. But then 4 and 5 need to be fixed. Okay.
And one thing I'll point out is this isn't just for you, just for everybody, but we were not under pre-clearance here.
Sure.
That is gone from the Supreme Court case, but we are still subject to the Voting Rights Act if based on certain factors. So it hasn't disappeared. We do have to consider it here if the factors are met.
Well, then I suggest you consider it.
Well, it's okay if I do this.
Yeah, please do.
I'm Kokithia Hill, and I'm just going to speak about community map number 2. Full disclosure, I'm a little biased because I helped create the map. But I do want to give rationale because I think it is one of the maps that is a little bit distinctly different than all the other maps, and why I think it should at least reserve some serious consideration. Coming to both the community meetings that you all held, thank you for that. I took down feedback that I heard from, I took back feedback that I heard from community as well as folks that showed up here and the election board. And then I went back to try to look at data. I wanted to look at and try to balance the population demographics of the school district. I'm talking about just the population, which is slightly majority white, with the population demographics of the student population of the district, which is around 56% Black, 28% Latino, 10% white. So I'm trying to balance majority white tax base with a majority Black community and students that go to their school. And I would say majority minority people of color. So when you look at map 2, I started first saying, what does the current trend say about just the growth from the 2020 census, looking at each sub-district demographics? And what I found, and this is on your website, I just pulled the data that's on the website for current conditions, you will see that African Americans have the plurality or the largest demographic in sub-district 2, which was 42.61, sub-district 4, which was 55.72% Black, and sub-district 5, which was 50.45% Black, right? Those are the three, and I said, okay, how can I keep that constant? Then I went and looked at the Latino community, because that's the second growing and fastest growing demographic within the student demographics. And Latinos pretty much had majority in only like sub-district 3. And I wouldn't say majority because in sub-district 3, Latino is 38.85, but the white population was 38.90, but still the largest percentage of Latinos was in sub-district 3. And so I started there, and I said, okay, well, in sub-district 2, the same thing that you said, Mr. Grimes, you see the boom in downtown, and their largest boom was white. So I started, which you will see like the first iteration of saying, okay, how do we shift downtown either to sub-district 1, which is overwhelmingly white already, or sub-district 3, which had the second highest kind of total population of white people there. Then I said, hey, if Latino population of students is growing why is it that their voice is only represented in sub-district 3? Can I, which I did, reduce some of the Latino population in sub-district 3, but equally try to spread it out across sub-district 2, 3, 4, and 5. And so if you look at the demographics on map 2, you will see that in sub-district, let's talk to sub-district 2, it is 42.6% Black and 22% Latino. So I increased the Latino population from 15.67 to 22% in sub-district 2. Then moving on to sub-district 4, it was 55% Black. It is now, based on the drawings, 57% Black, 16.1% Latino. It was 16.8% Latino before, so held that constant. And then in sub-district 5, I had this choice to make. Even though in sub-district 5, pre-drawn any lines, it was 50.45% Black. It is now, let's see what it is on the map. It is now, and I'm looking in the over 18 column for anybody that's following me. It is now 46%. So I reduced the population of Black people in that district to 46%. It still is the largest demographic of folks, as I reduced the Latino population in sub-district 3. So if you look around, I just tried to balance it out. Certainly, I think people will have their own feedback about, hey, you reduce numbers here, but I reduce numbers from the Latino community in sub-district 3 and from the Black community in sub-district 5. Now we have 3 sub-districts that are majority minority. Black and Latinos tend to vote, we were talking about politics, seem to be somewhat more aligned than any other. And I tried to put the white population in the 2 districts where they were already the majority. It just increased the white percentage. So that is my rationale for the map on map 2, and I think it's a little bit more reflective of a balanced approach while still maintaining the Voting Rights Act and also providing 3 majority minority districts. Thank you.
When Grant, CEO, Urban Legislator, Kansas City, I'm here representing the Urban Council, which is comprised of the Urban League, the NAACP, the Southern Christian Leadership Council, the National Black United Front, KC, and the Urban Summit, the 5 organized civil rights organizations for the greater Kansas City area. We support and actually presented Community Map 2, and primarily for all the reasons stated by Dr. Hill, and worked collaboratively with Dr. Hill. And I just want to kind of digress for a second just to talk about the fact that we have a process that says bring community maps without providing resources for community to do so is something that requires a lot of technical expertise, access to technology, and things of that nature. So we certainly need to take that type of issue into consideration going forward. But basically, when we were here before, we expressed our concerns about the map, especially as we looked at the District 1. And it's important with Community Map 2, with Community Map 2, Dr. Hill and Dr.
Order.
I'm doing your job. You also tell me to clap. Anyway, so this map addresses, as Dr. Hill stated, this map provides 3 majority minority districts, sub-districts. KCPS is a majority minority school district. And so it's very important that in this particular map, it addresses all those factors, as well as it is in alignment with the Voting Rights Act. Those sub-districts are also compact and contiguous. So it fits, it meets all of the requirements. Okay, it meets all of those criteria. But with regard to that District 1, which is downtown, another reason that we support this and that particular concern is that we do not believe that the District 1 is what we would call a community of interest with the east side. And as we look at the population growth that's anticipated for downtown, then we see that the Latino vote and the Black vote drawn in the subdistrict as we have depicted in here actually takes care and addresses that issue. As downtown, and before, let me back up. When you all drew that map and we talked about it, wasn't that very much difference between 1%, but that was based on the fact that you had to come in midterm and draw the map. And so, okay, we only have to live with those maps for 2 years. Now we're talking about having to live with these maps for 10 years. So we certainly want to take into consideration the anticipated continuous growth in downtown that's going to continue to grow, and is probably most likely going to continue to grow white. So therefore, the Latino population in that area, by moving it in the way that we have, it actually positions them for greater strength as opposed to more dilution of their voting power in District 1. And so, that is really important, and for that reason, we don't believe that they should be in the city.
So hold on, Ms. Grant. So in this map, what makes it distinct, as Dr. Hill said, is you sort of you give more of the Hispanic population to another district where it wasn't before. Okay, they were all in 3, and then essentially half that were in 3 are now in 2. So do you believe that you talked about the white population going downtown, and I think most people can agree. Can you say a little bit about, do you think the Hispanic population is going to grow and overcome some of?
So you also have to take into, if you're looking at that growth downtown, and you look at the challenge with the Hispanic community is that it actually is spread across several big subdistricts. And so by moving them in the manner that we have, we just believe that creates more plurality and strength for them in moving them into those districts where you have the majority African American and Latino, and they have, I think, a greater opportunity for representation in this configuration than if they stay more just mostly in District 1. So I don't think we made major ones there. I think it was, as Dr. Hill pointed out, we spread it out in a way that can address the fact that they are also spread out.
But let me follow up on that. So I take it, I don't know if I'm right about this or not.
Excuse me, we want to try to capture the mic for the recording, so if we could keep sidebar down.
So Community Map 2, I'm just going to stick with the over 18 voting age. You've got 22.96 Hispanic in District 2. Is it your belief or position that those Hispanic voters there will align with the Black voters in District 2 to elect candidates of choice?
And so the other thing that, the socioeconomic factors for downtown and the booming downtown, there's no affordable housing there. Very little. So let's really be realistic about the fact that growth down there is going to grow. We got 1, 2, 3. We got how many more lights coming down there? That's not affordable housing. There's going to be more growth, young. If you look at the trends, that particular demographic is not necessarily going to pick up the Latino community. We think that the growth opportunities are better in the way that this map is drawn. I would also say that it's certainly important that if in terms of what maps you advance to the election board, with your recommendation, this is a community process, and we have a community map, and we would expect that our map be advanced because we would like the election board to hear from the community, and we are representing a broad base of 5 organizations, and we vetted this map within our organization.
Were there Hispanic groups that were part of your, that you consulted?
No, not for this, no. No, we represent the civil rights communities. We didn't consult with them on this map. I don't believe they consulted with us on any of them.
Apologize for speaking back there. So as a member of the Latino community, I don't represent the entire population of the Latino community. I just want to be clear about that. Actually, before I say that, is it possible to do like a 10-minute break so we can talk to each other and have some conversations, or is that that'd be great? I would request that.
Let's come back at 7, let's just make it 17.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
This one, maybe not.
Yeah, I tell you, they really messed up the census. Well, we don't technically have a veto power. I mean, we could like recommend and make it.
Sure.
We're just here to give a recommendation. We don't.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we're. Well, yeah, we never said that we were gonna limit it to one. No, we said present three final maps and then
Yeah.
yeah, we should do it. Yeah, let's roll it.
Okay, it is 7:10. So according to the schedule, you all are right. We need to narrow to three maps that the election board can choose from. And so we welcome comments to help us accomplish that.
Okay, let me make a second comment here. This is going to be a little technical. I've reproduced map 4.1.
You said what?
I've reproduced map 4.1. And my understanding is that the variation in the district was to be less than 1% or less than 5%. Okay. Then it's over 1% in District 3. But if that's not a consideration, there's another issue. Excuse me?
Go ahead.
Precinct number 709, 4.1. Precinct number 7.9, 709, and precinct 712. I've been in conversations with people, with Brian Wise down at City Planning Development, because City Planning Development has wrong numbers, has different numbers than the Census Bureau has for the numbers in those precincts. And it wouldn't make a difference if those precincts are in the same district, so then the deviation would work itself out. But because in 4.1, those precincts are in different districts, the population number in those two districts, in District 4 and 5, are incorrect. Okay.
And you pointed this out, I think, in your submission.
I did.
Now, one thing I might have mentioned this before too. We know that the census reported numbers that are probably not completely accurate at the precinct level to protect privacy.
How would anyone know that?
Well, we just know. There's been litigation about that, but we can't know, so we have to go with this. But just if it ever comes down to 10 or 20 people, we have to just realize that we can't ultimately take these numbers to the bank.
Okay. Okay, but I'm just saying map 4.1 has to be redone anyway. Okay.
Repeat the two precincts, Mr. Tahir.
So I would like to go ahead and comment for myself. Now looking at the explanations by the community map members, I would support 1 and 2. I would definitely take out not consider 5 and not consider 4.1. Thank you.
All right, hello, my name is Celia, and I'll be honest, a friend invited me to come today, and I come as an outsider in the sense, I'm thinking of English, Spanish, but I don't have any children. And I don't have any children, but I have plenty of nieces and nephews. I have been involved in the community. I do some other stuff. And so then when KCMO School District, and I'm born and raised KCMO, when KCMO School District parents will ask me, why is it that we have maths or no maths and school and no school? And then those decisions are coming from, KCMO School Board. Now I'm like, oh, this is how all of it makes sense. These are the decision makers. And so now I'll be honest, I'm thinking what do I know? Because really I came in here as knowing zero. So one, I appreciate the transparency and sharing of the process, opening up this space online and in person with the spacing and etc. And I'll be honest, it's a little bit uncomfortable for me to just hear, certain terminology and thinking that we have to be divided. But what is the best decision making for our kids? And so then I don't have the best answer. I don't have maybe the best recommendation for a map. But when I do look at these and I think, what are the families that I do know? What are those communities that I do see growing? Where are communities where I see that our community members are being displaced and could possibly not be represented appropriately? There are some spaces on these maps where do I see us in the question was about affordable housing? Do I see our communities in there over the next 10 years? At the 15-year mark? It's difficult decision making. So all of that being said, I like the 1. I like 4.1. But again, you have awesome advocates here and people who are very much well versed in all of this, and so then I encourage you to listen to all community members. But again, I'm here as an outsider, and I appreciate this opportunity. Thank you.
Well, because you're here, you are now an insider. So thank you for coming, and please continue to participate as we move forward.
So I understand that this is a process of elimination, and Spark will come in. And if we're going to be eliminating, I think at the top of the list we eliminate 5, and we eliminate 4.1. And I support sending community map 1, community map 2, and scenario 4, not before the election board.
Good evening, Christy Moreno. I'm the friend that invited Celia to be here. And the reason why is because our Latino community never gets invited to meetings. We are not well represented. We don't get the information, and we find out through the friend of a friend of a friend, and we need to end that. We are a fast growing population. You already know that. The census knows that. All of us know it here. And we make decisions as a community. That's why you see us chatting in the corner. That's why you have to shush us sometimes. I am very grateful for this opportunity to be here learning. Most of us are here in learning mode. And I'm very appreciative of that. I do believe there needs to be much more education towards the community regarding these decisions. These decisions are impacting the present and the future of our children and our children's children. And it is very important that moving forward, that invitation is extended to us in our preferred languages as well. I am new to this topic and I'm learning a lot, and I'm probably not going to sleep much tonight because all of this will be spinning in my head. However, I do prefer the community maps that have been submitted versus the scenarios that we have here more towards the right. Do not support scenario 5.
and I do not support scenario 4.1. I do prefer the community maps. Community map 2, presented by my friends over here. There's a lot of processing that needs to happen for the community, the Latino community there. But we're a powerful community, and we're organizing, and we're learning. We're here to learn. And so I do want to reiterate, I believe more in the community maps than in the scenarios that are presented towards the right.
Thank you.
I didn't plan being on the mic for 3 times, so my apologies.
The second time you just asked for a break.
Right.
It's okay.
The reason that I did ask for a break, though, was because we were talking about Hispanic Latino people without actually conferring with Hispanic Latino people, and that felt kind of off for me. I don't specifically think that any map is going to actually really elevate the Latino voice in these conversations, and I think we have a lot of work to do as a community to build the infrastructure around how we're educating around these issues, how we're elevating the voices of the folks that are most impacted by this. And then there was also a question of whether Black and brown people would align on something, right? Like, could there be a scenario where we would work together as a community to build power or to demonstrate need or to really advocate for our students? And so I will say this from my personal experience. We may not agree on every issue, but I think one issue that we agree is that our kids are underrepresented when it comes to election boards. They are underserved. And I think those are issues that we can align with and that we believe in, that we can help support and help by bringing people together. And so I am not in favor of scenario 5, and I am supporting the community maps that were drawn 1 and 2. I still don't know enough about 4.1 and 4 to make an opinion on that or have an opinion on that, but I don't ever want this to be about a Black versus brown issue, because really it's our kids who are the most impacted by these issues, and our kids who have the least representation around these conversations. So appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
I want to follow up, Edgar, because I do want to confirm and affirm for Edgar that this is a collaborative process between the Black and brown community, and we are certainly fully open to that in support of community maps 1 and 2. Certainly 4.1 and 5, but as far as I'm concerned, this is a community process. If you advance maps, there needs to be the community map. The other map is not a great map by any means from my perspective for community maps 1 and 2. But we have a Black-Brown coalition that was formed out of the redistricting process. And that coalition is working collaboratively as we address redistricting for the city of Kansas City, the council district. And so I did have to share that information with my colleagues, my brown community colleagues here, as well as the Black folks here who were not aware. But there is a process by which we can engage. If you advance community maps 1 and 2, we will engage collaboratively to arrive at consensus about the map that we will submit to the election board and ensure that it's.
Thank you.
That's a question. So I'm hearing a lot of consensus around community maps 1 and 2. I'm hearing some concerns about 4.1. If we advance 3, how do we differentiate and how do people feel about 4 versus 5? 5 can go, you're done? No 5? Thumbs up or no, I'm kidding. Okay, got it. Understood, thank you.
If we could, we're going to go through all the maps, and we need a show of hands for each map. If you don't agree with the map, don't raise your hand. So that way, they are going to count and ensure that the maps are advanced, because everybody has picked similar maps, but a different combination. So in other words, show your hand when if we say map 1. Then those who are in favor of map 1, all raise your hand. They're going to count it, and the number's going to be said out loud. Basically, what I'm asking is for you all to vote so that we can take your vote and then we take the number down. So collectively, everybody in this room that's participating, just a show of hands.
So are we voting for the one map we want? Or
No, we're voting for 3 maps that you would like.
Up to 3, and you don't have to vote for 3. You can vote for the ones you like, but we need to eliminate the 3.
And will you post those voting results publicly online?
We'll post it right now.
Okay, thank you.
The secretary is going to do it.
Sorry, not to throw a monkey wrench in it, but I just got some text from parents at home that are watching, and they said that the chat feature is not not available so that they could weigh in. Is that the case or not? I just want to clarify that for parents.
We've been chatting with
back
people.
and forth the whole meeting.
Okay, that's all. I
Yeah.
just want to make sure that
But
was
maybe they're not. I don't know.
great.
Yeah,
Thanks a
they're
lot.
telling us you're muffled. We're hearing it. They're giving us all kinds.
Great, thank you.
All right, so in terms of map 1, if you could indicate that you like map 1, that you're okay with it being advanced, please, a show of hands. Map 1.
Everybody have 13?
All right, and you still can vote because we're trying to advance up to 3, so you can vote again. How about community map 2? Show of hands if you are okay with that map. So the same 13. Did you raise your hand the last time?
For map 2.
1, 2,
You're the sky.
4. Yes, 13. Map 4, show of hands. .1. So I got 9. Did y'all get 9?
Map 4 is 9. Okay. Okay, hold on. Let's do a show of hands for map. 3 count.
I got 11.
Did y'all get 11?
11, okay. 11 for map 4.
How about 4.1? How about in the last option, 5? Show of hands for map 5. All right, so according, okay. No,
No.
there are 7 participants and no votes. But there are other communications. Okay, so having done those counts, the verdict is that we will advance map 1, 2, and 4 to the Board of Elections, and that meeting will take place on November 12th at the Chamber Boardroom at Union Station.
That's to be announced.
Okay, so we haven't secured the location, but that is where we hope it will be. Because there's enough space.
It'll be a Union Station no matter what.
Yeah, do the other room.
So just please make sure stakeholder groups and people like that understand it will not be here. So on the 12th at noon at Union Station.
And the alternate room, if it's not in the chamber boardroom, unfortunately, put it up on the website, would be 15. And that's the training room. That's the Kansas City Board of Elections training room. 15. But if you check our website, we'll definitely have it noted there. The chamber hasn't responded thus far.
Can I ask a question? Just for
Certainly.
clarity of the community. 12 o'clock is a rough time for parents to participate, but if parents want to participate, could you give a preview of how generally that meeting process occurs? Parents can observe. Is it a public comment period? I mean, just could you give me an example for the record of how that meeting structurally occurs?
Well, would you all like to do it, or would you like for me to do it? Okay. It's actually our board meeting. So our board makes the decision on the maps. All of our board members are currently online right now. So essentially what will happen is they will vote. They've paid attention to everything going on from the first hearing up till now. They're examining the maps, and then they will vote on the map at that meeting. Their last time public comment, we did have public comment after the fact. Many maps were submitted the day of the meeting and brought to the meeting, but that's why we tried to clearly outline the schedule, so to give the community the opportunity to submit maps prior to the day of the vote. So yes, you will have the opportunity to share, but the board will essentially make the decision. Any further questions?
And I mean, I think we would all encourage written comments in advance.
Absolutely.
Via the email address or via the website. You know, we all see those. Those will all be shared with the board prior to that meeting as well. So.
And another thing that I wanted to share with you all, thus far, we only have 8 comments on the website, on the email, since the first hearing. There's only 8 people, and of the 8, you guys are here. So we need participation. And it's kind of sad because last time we only had 4 comments on the website. So,
I just think, sometimes people think that I submit an email and it flies off into the ether and nobody reads it or pays attention to it, and that's not the situation here. It's a dedicated email address just for this process. It's shared with all of us. It's shared with the election board. I understand noon's a hard time. That's when the election board has their standing meeting. That's why it's at noon. And so, if you have stakeholder groups or interested parents or things like that, definitely encourage them to submit comments via that method.
And I think even last time, for people that thought that time frame didn't work, some people would send their written thoughts. So it's, if there's a group of parents that want to sign, their written thoughts can be read to kind of make up for that. So people have done that before. So we realize, people are at work or at school or what have you.
Even in those movies where there's a New England town hall and the entire town, some town in Connecticut of, 100 people packs into a church and they all vote there, the old direct democracy. That's the pinnacle of democracy in our national lore. But even then, each person's 1 out of 100. Here we have 200,000 voters in this area, and we've got 8 or 10 people greatly informing our decision. So if you're an outsider, or you're not sure your voice could be heard, you're never going to have better odds of swaying the vote than being one of the 8 or 10 people to sway a couple 100,000.
Can you all allow us some time? I don't know if anyone's interested, but I'd like to do share some videos and with people online, kind of inviting them and showing these to just kind of prep them for that next meeting. So if anyone is interested, but you can allow us maybe a couple minutes here afterwards to just kind of take some photos and share stuff. Yeah. Cool. But when you share it from your own platform, sometimes people pay attention a bit more. Cool.
Do not take photos of us, though.
Thank you for spending your evening with us. We are finished. We appreciate all the time that you put into this. Folks that have not participated before, we certainly appreciate you, and come back in 10 years when we do it again.
Yeah.